Welcome back from the break. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. You're watching NewsX's special series, Second Wave Superheroes. We, on the show, recognize individuals and organizations for their selfless service during the devastating second wave of the pandemic. Our guests for today include Ramesh Balasundaram, Binu Verma, Fazil, as well as Harsh Gupta. Listen in to these special interviews.
One of the leading NGOs in Bangalore, Bal Utsav is revitalizing government schools to bring life-changing education to millions of underprivileged children. In the last decade, Bal Utsav has reformed over 200 government schools in Karnataka and over 8 lakh students have benefited through their flagship programs. Bal Utsav went beyond education and forayed into disaster response in 2015 through their program called Dayitva. The crisis response and management framework developed by the team today is used by various organizations nationally. NewsX proudly recognizes Ramesh Balasundaram and Binu Verma, co-founders of Bal Utsav.
Hello and welcome to our special show, Second Wave Superheroes. I am Priyanka Sharma and joining me today on the broadcast are Mr. Ramesh Balasundaram and Ms. Binu Verma, founders of Bengaluru-based NGO Bal Utsav. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us over, Priyanka.
Thank you. Mr. Ramesh, I would like to start off by asking you, Bangalore was one of the worst affected states during the second wave. Tell us about your organization's efforts towards COVID relief, especially amid this time.
Sure. So for us, this has been a long COVID-19 response. What started off in March 2020 still seems to be going on with just a little pause in between. This year, the second wave was a lot more aggressive. The needs on the ground were slightly different to what we saw last year. But in terms of scale and the need, it's been at least about 5 times as big as what we've done last year, Priyanka.
Yeah.
Right. Everything from ensuring that we needed more oxygen here. I mean, this was something that was unheard of last year. So from setting up oxygen concentrator banks to ensuring that we're looking at stay-at-home food kits, stay-at-home hygiene kits, making cooked food available, and supporting both frontline workers and going out and ensuring that families affected by COVID were attended to. It's been a very, very uphill journey for us as we look at the second wave.
Ms. Binu, can you elaborate on your volunteer base? How many volunteers are currently on board and what goes behind the scenes on every day?
Sure. So, see, the backbone of the entire project has been volunteers for all of us. This time where people were a little hesitant in stepping out and doing the relief work, we did get a lot of volunteers, a lot of people who came forward, were eagerly waiting to step out and also support the ones in need. So approximately around 50 to 60 volunteers are there who are working from home, coordinating with the people who are in need. And simultaneously, we have around 100 odd volunteers, foot soldiers on ground who are supporting our initiatives. Yes.
That's nice. How can someone become a volunteer or extend help?
So, Priyanka, to start with, I think we should thank all our existing volunteers and supporters. This work wouldn't be possible without them. But clearly, the gap between demand and supply is only growing. It's not shrinking. And anybody who wants to sign up can sign up by visiting our website on balutsav.ngo. That's the name of our website. Both for them to be able to make resources available in terms of people and persons. That's the way to go. Based on where they are and what their skill sets are, our volunteer coordination team then assigns them roles. Some of them can take up roles like last mile delivery of our food kits. Some of them are just moving material around, whereas we've also got a lot of volunteers who are virtually, while they have the comfort of staying at home, are raising resources for us to be able to carry out this much needed work.
Especially when there is so much despair around, when the world is facing such a pandemic like never before. How do you keep yourself in positive spirits? Where do you see the ray of hope?
Truthfully, I think this is the absolute challenge for people like us working in this organization or for working in the sector. This is the real test. Like now, all the workshops that you go through, all the learning that you have, this is the time when all of that has been put to test. And we are happy that we've not yet. We may be bending, but we haven't been broken as yet. And thanks to our supporters for keeping it on. I think spirituality plays a role for us to be able to keep our head above water, especially when you're being flooded with panic calls day in and day out. You need to maintain a sense of sanity, and that's another thing that we keep around. And thanks to NewsX, Priyanka Sharma and the team because you go out and amplify the message so that one, we are able to get across to more people, and also we open up as a channel for people who would like to be of support to people on ground who need help.
Definitely. Well, that's a wrap from our end. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and all the best for your initiative.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
During the second phase lockdown in Chennai, there was a sudden increase in demand for home-style cooked meals, as many people were either infected with COVID and isolating, or were elderly citizens unable to get their regular help. Chennai Tricolor Initiative, along with Chennai Volunteer Task Force, decided to create a directory of verified food suppliers that can be filtered based on location to ensure that citizens were able to quickly reach a provider. They have not only helped COVID patients, but also ambulance drivers, daily wage earners, and transgenders. NewsX proudly recognizes second wave superhero Fazil Badury.
Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Fiza Jain. Today on Second Wave Superheroes, we have with us Mr. Fazil, who is the leader of one of the COVID community kitchen in Chennai. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So my first question to you is, what led to the idea of this COVID community kitchen in Chennai?
Right. So the entire idea behind the COVID community kitchen started off from the Chennai volunteers team that was coordinated by the Chennai Tricolor Initiative. The initial stages of the second wave, we understood that a lot of people were isolating at home as compared to the first wave. And many of them were isolating as complete family. Fatigue drove them down and they were unable to, cook and eat. So we came up with 2 meal plans, basically a directory for folks who are serving meals to such families, and also a directory of donors who want to sponsor food for these folks who are unaffordable, basically the drivers of people who are affected and for whom the meals were not available. So this was how it started at the early stages. And we knew that at some point of time, the volume would become too high for us to cater and the need of a community kitchen would be required. So we had always prepped with a couple of our partners to ensure that if and when the need arises, we are able to cater to large volumes of food as well.
Okay, so how has your journey been till now?
It has been very heartwarming because when we started, we knew that the economic efforts, impact of the first wave was still bearing down on a lot of restaurants and, basically on the food industry. So we were really skeptical on how many of the restaurants would come up and partner with us this time. However, to great joy, many of the restaurants said that we will stand for it and we will help you out this time as well, and we will donate meals. So what started off with a small donation of 50 meals per day, slowly ramped up to about 300, 400 meals per time, so for lunch and for dinner. And one of the things that happened was that we noticed the number of ambulances that were lining up outside hospitals. So these ambulance drivers could not even move from the space because, they had to be right next to the vehicle at any point to move ahead. So we understood that a lot of them had not even had, proper meal. So that is when we actually tied up, or we approached 108 and told them, the ambulance coordinators, and told them that, hey, listen, and we are sure that your drivers must be facing some problems. Why don't we help you, sort that out? And for the last month and a half, we've been daily feeding about 150 of these ambulance drivers on a daily basis.
Okay, so it was I understand, a very tedious task, and with such a huge wave and people isolating at home, did it really take an emotional toll on you?
There was an emotional downtime as usual. There are days when you really feel helpless as what you can do, because, like I said, the ambulance driver was just one part of the initiatives that we did. Besides that, we were catering to different segments. We were catering to the transgender community, because they were also hard hit by the pandemic. Some of the hardships that they had to go through, and this one meal that, when we provided to them at their doorstep, that smile, just the pure smile and the satisfaction on their face makes any emotional backlog, just vanish.
True. So tell me some concluding things, that how was your personal complete journey?
It was very satisfying and very full of gratitude, because there are so many unsung heroes there who don't even come out, who are not even there anywhere to be mentioned. We are very thankful to all the restaurant partners and the catering community that came up to help us serve near about 400 meals per time. So 400 for lunch, 400 for dinner, enabling us to serve near about 40,000 meals over the period of time. And I would also take this opportunity to thank some of our sponsors who had wholeheartedly come forward. So starting from a food group called Eat, Pray, Love, which is based out of Chennai. So they arranged a lot of funds and coordinated for a large number of days. And then another restaurant called Kebabchi, based out of Numambakam in Chennai. And then another restaurant called Kapachaka Kandari by Chef Reggie, who was like, we are okay to help them throughout as long as you need. And SBI Diners, who were our main kitchen sourcer, and who was, where the fund basis. So these are some of our partners who stood by us without any, guarantee. Or they said, Fazil, you're doing a great job. Your team is doing a great job. Just let us know how many days you need, and we will support you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on this show. And indeed, it's people like you that India has actually now started coming out of the second wave and will fight this COVID crisis soon. So
thank you so much.
I'll just stop it.
The student community of RML National Law University came together during the second wave of COVID-19 under the COVID Relief RML NLU initiative. The team initiated a toll-free helpline and promptly responded to distress calls. They created databases for plasma, oxygen and bed availability. The initiative was spearheaded by the Legal Aid Committee and Legal Aid Clinic of RML NLU. NewsX proudly recognizes second wave superheroes RML NLU students.
Hello and welcome to NewsX's second wave superheroes. I am Ujasvi Shahan, and today I am joined with Harsh Gupta, who is the joint convener of the Legal Aid Committee of RML NLU. Welcome to the show, Harsh.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us.
So Harsh, along with more young people like him, has been doing some really good work. During the second wave of coronavirus, he and his team, in fact, practically helped a lot of people. So, Harsh, I would like to begin by asking you that how exactly were you able to help people?
So initially, the people from the Legal Aid Committee and the Legal Aid Clinic of RML and LU started this initiative on 19th of April 2021 with a group of 30 to 40 people. So as and when we progressed, we had more people who joined this initiative. So this included the RML and LU Alumni Association, student volunteers from our college, and student volunteers from the Delhi University. So first of all, we started a toll-free helpline number and activated our social media platforms to spread awareness and sensitize people regarding the same. We started looking for leads on Twitter, Instagram, and various other and different government websites. So when there would be calls on our helpline number, the concerned person who picks up the call will forward the lead to the concerned team, and the team would then look for the database or any other government website and will verify the leads. And if we have a confirmed lead, then we will pass it on to the person who called us and we will help that person. We also started a blood donation drive and plasma donation with the help of Blood Connect. And in that, we had people from our college and the colleagues and everyone who wanted to donate plasma or blood. And therefore, at the later period, when the requirements of plasma donation, blood donation was on its peak, so we also helped a lot of people in getting those two things too.
That's great. Also, Harsh, tell us about what motivated you to do this, because not a lot of young people step up in such situations to help people.
So the Legal Aid Committee has always been associated with legal and social assistance. So since most of us come from a position of privilege, that makes it imperative for us to assist the people in need. We wanted to do the little we could to help the people during these tough times, and that is what motivated us as a team to start this initiative. When we went to our college and we talked about this to our professors, so our Vice Chancellor, Professor S.K. Bhatnagar, and the committee chairperson, Dr. Manish Singh, were more than happy to help, and under their guidance, we started this initiative. And also with the support of the administration of the college and finance department, it was a really good teamwork that we were able to pull this off.
All right, thanks for sharing that information. I would also like to ask you that since you were in direct contact with patients and their families, so are there any emotional moments that moved you or were really emotional that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yes, there was just one call I remember, which we received at around 3:30 a.m. in the morning from Shahjahanpur. So it's somewhere near Bulandshahr or somewhere. So they called us at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and the patient was a girl who was 18 to 20 years of age, and they told us that they have 12 hours to live. Like she had 12 hours to live, and she did ventilator for the same. So we asked them if they could shift the patient to somewhere else because that place did not have ventilators at that time, or the hospitals were occupied. So we arranged a bed at 4:15 at 4:15 a.m. in the morning. In Lucknow, there was this one Avon hospital where we arranged the bed, and then we also arranged an ambulance for them. And then at 8 a.m. when we called them back to check whether the girl has been taken to the hospital or not, they said that the girl has been taken and now is under hospital care. So we realized that one help of us could save a life, because the people are not really tech savvy and they could not call all of the people. And so it really moved us all emotionally, because that was one thing where we saved a life.
That's amazing. Also, what expectations do you have from the authorities? How could authorities have been more helpful for your initiative or in general?
So what we figured out is, during the initial days of the pandemic, most of the resources were not under the direct control of the government, and people had to look for isolated leads to fulfill their requirements. The family members of the patients were running here and there for the life-saving drugs and everything, because they do not have information on where to go or where they would find the things which they require. So later on, when the government undertook everything under their control, it was easier for the patients, since the people who were admitted or who needed these life-saving drugs were directly given from the hospitals to the patient, and therefore the people do not have to travel or look for other things. So we believe if the process is structured well, then it could save patients from a lot of confusion and chaos. So it is like, we also expect the authority to sensitize about the pandemic and its implications, the need to get tested and take necessary precautions like wearing a mask or using sanitizer, so that patients don't lose their lives due to lack of knowledge.
Thanks for making that point. I would now like to ask you that how should India prepare for further waves which experts suggest are now inevitable?
So first of all, what we experience is the government should undertake measures to prevent black marketing, overuse and wastage of life-saving medicines, so that it becomes readily available and directly available to the patients via hospitals. So in rural areas, higher level of sensitization will create the necessary awareness for people to take precautions and get themselves tested earlier if they detect symptoms. This will prevent the spread of the virus too. Also, awareness should be spread regarding compulsory vaccination, and people should be advised to get themselves tested and stay at home or in isolation or get themselves admitted to a hospital if they develop serious symptoms. And in no way there should be anything which could, elevate the pandemic or spread the pandemic by people who are negligent or who are not following the protocols or the rules of the government. So we need a stricter sanitization and knowledge of the people. That.
Yes. Thanks, Harsh, for joining us today, and thanks for all the good work that you and your team have been doing for the society. Thanks for joining us again.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.